Hi everyone, welcome to another Friday live session with Ashani. My name is Ashani Yapa. I'm a registered migration agent in Australia, based in Brisbane. These Friday live sessions are all about trying to educate our clients and potential clients who's interested in Australian visas. This special live session today is about employer nominated visa subclass 494. In past weeks we discussed about subclass 482 or TSS visa, which is also a employer nominated visa. It is quite a hot topic these days, employer nominated visas, due to the Australian labour shortages, and employers are more and more interested and more knowledgeable about these visas and looking for options to retain their current workforce or bring people from overseas to help with their ongoing vacancies. So today is about subclass 494, which is employer nominated regional visa. Before I go and explain about the visa and the requirement for employers and employees, I just want to give you our contact details, and if you have any questions while I'm talking about the visa, about this visa or any of the other Australian visas, please type in your question. I am more than willing to answer them after the session today. So our phone number is 1300 074878, and our email address is admin@cirrus.com.au, and you can also contact us on WhatsApp +61 450 674 787. All the details are displayed in the screen as well. If you want to get the details and get in touch with us, please feel free to do that. So subclass 494, it used to be called subclass 187 or RSMS. The previous RSMS visa was replaced by subclass 494. It's a fairly new visa, started in November 16, 2019. Subclass 494, it's a provisional visa granted for 5 years, which means once you're holding the subclass 494 visa for 3 years, without going for a nomination again, you're eligible to apply for subclass 191. That is the permanent visa, sort of like attached with 494. If you fulfill the requirements of the 494, then you can go to the subclass 191, which came out in 2022 November. We have done a few visas as well. Because I talked about subclass 191, I'll quickly explain you what if once you're holding the subclass 494, what is the requirement to get to permanent residency. So if you're going through the eligibility and once you're holding the 494, one of the benefits is you will get Australian Medicare. You don't need to hold private health insurance, and you can include all your family members into the subclass 494 employer nominated visa, and you must live and work in that regional area that you mentioned. You can move between regional areas, but then you have to inform the department, and if you change employers, you have 3 months or the 90 days to find a new employer. But if you fulfill all the requirements for 3 years, then you are eligible to apply for subclass 191 and get permanent residency. So this sounds great. The only thing is you will have to be working and living in regional for 3 years, but regional anywhere apart from Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane is considered regional. Now even Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Toowoomba, which is about 50, 60, 100 kilometers away from a main city, is now considered regional. That's actually great news for everyone. Regional doesn't mean you have to go and live in the jungle. Right. So what is this subclass 494? As I said, it is an employer nominated visa. For an employee side, you have to be under 45. You need to hold a valid skills assessment in your nominated occupation. You need to have competent English, which is 6 in each band, IELTS. It doesn't have to be academic, it can be general. And you need to have skilled 3 years worth of full-time work experience. So this experience doesn't have to be full-time, it can be part-time, but taken in pro rata basis. basis, which means if you work part-time for 6 years, that is counted as 3 years full-time. You can be in or outside of Australia at the time of lodging the visa, but if you're in Australia, you can be in a substantial visa or bridging visa A, B, C to lodge this visa. Your main applicants also has to be in a visa. If they're in Australia, your secondary applicants, the requirement they need to fulfill is, if they're over 18, they need to prove their English. If they don't have the English, which is only functional English, if they don't have that, then they have to pay the secondary application fee, which is about $4,900. So as I said, under 45, competent English, skills assessment, nominated occupation in one of the lists, and you need to have an employer who's willing to give you a job, and this employment or this job has to be located in regional area, and it has to be valid, or the job has to be available for at least 5 years, because you are getting a 5-year visa granted. So we need to prove that this job may exist in the next 5 years or for the next 5 years. And what is the requirement for your employer? So your employer obviously has to give you a job and pay you the annual market salary rate, which is right now it's $70,000 plus super. They need to make sure this job or the actual work that you're going to perform is located in one of the regional postcodes, which we can share with you. And also they need to make sure that this position genuinely exists within their business, and they may have to provide documentations to prove that it is a genuine position. Normally we ask people to provide organizational charts and other information to prove that it is a genuine position. And the company has to have legal registration in Australia and has to be paying taxes and their super and all the legal obligations that any business has to fulfill if they're operating in Australia. And they also has to show that the business has a financial capacity to pay this nominating employee. And if this is a new occupation that they are creating, again they have to go and show that what is the requirement for this position in their business. And also the employer has to do labor market testing, which is advertising the position and show that they genuinely cannot find any employees outside. That's why they are going ahead with this requirement. Apart from that, this visa subclass 494 has about 10,000 places allocated each year. So these employers located in regional area has the capacity to bring in 10,000 people. So that's a great benefit for most of these employees. Another great benefit of subclass 494 is the availability of a wide range of occupations. So for people who wants to nominate an employee for subclass 494, the employee's occupation can be either in MLTSS, which is the medium to long-term list, or the short-term list, STSOL, or the ROL, regional occupation list. So this can answer one of the biggest questions our clients can have, which is, why go for subclass 494? Why not go for subclass 482? Yes, 482 is a great option actually. Right now 3 years with the same employer, or you get permanent residency. But with subclass 494, sometimes the occupations that are not available for subclass 482 are available under subclass 494. So in this scenario, regional employers tend to go for subclass 494 rather than subclass 482 because they have a wider range of occupations that are available under subclass 494. Right. Also, this visa again has two parts: nomination, which is from the employer, and visa application, which is from the employee's side. For all the costs associated with the nomination has to be paid by the employer. Most of the cases, even the visa application parts are paid by the employer, but it can also be paid by the employee. So from the employer side, cost for this visa application is the SAF levy, which is the employment levy that all the employees has to pay for subclass 482 as well as subclass 494 and subclass 186. So the SAF levy for subclass 494 depends again on the employer's turnover. If the employer has a turnover of over 10 million, then they have to pay $5,000. It's a one-off payment paid at the time of lodging the nomination application. For some reason, if the nomination is refused, most likely you're going to lose this money. So that's why it's very important. You have to make sure that you fulfill all the requirements in the point of view of an employer before you go ahead and lodge a nomination and pay the SAF levy. If the employer's turnover is under 10 million, then they have to pay a one-off fee of $3,000. Again, this is a one-off fee and paid at the time of lodging the nomination, and if your nomination is failed for some reason, you're going to lose this money that you have paid. And once the employer lodges the nomination and once the employer lodges the RCB, which is the regional certifying body, and get the approval, then we are ready to lodge the visa application. We don't normally suggest our clients to lodge a visa application until the nomination is approved. But sometimes there are pressing cases with time when the client is onshore and their visa is expiring, or there are other time constraints that we have to work with. If the applicant's turning 45 soon or something like that, the migration agent may decide to lodge the nomination and the visa application together, which you can do. As long as you have lodged the nomination and it's a valid nomination, you can lodge the visa application from the visa applicant side. And when you lodge the visa application, you can either lodge the visa application just for the main applicant, or the main applicant can decide to include their family members. But if they don't include the family members at the time of lodgement, then they have to wait until the visa is granted, and then they can add or lodge a subsequent visa for their family members. Subclass 494 these days can take about 6 to 9 months, but the processing times are getting faster and faster. With subclass 482, we are seeing extremely faster processing time even for subclass 494. Our last subclass 482 was granted the nomination was granted in about 2 weeks, and the visa at the same time or soon after. Subclass 494 is the same. I think it's getting faster. They're trying to prioritize these employee nominated visas, hence the processing times being faster, starting from 1st of July or even a little before that. Right. So as I explained, subclass 494, it's a fairly new visa. It came in November 2019. Before that, it was the subclass 187. Comparing subclass 187 and subclass 494, subclass 187 was permanent residency. That is one of the major differences, where subclass 494 is a provisional visa. So what does this mean? So when you're holding a subclass 494 in Australia for 5 years, there are some other visas that you cannot lodge, which is subclass 820, which is partner visa. So immigration or the Department of Home Affairs wants to make sure that you're not just using the subclass 494 for the sake of just staying in the country until you find another solution. Rather, you're really committing to that work and living and working in that regional area. To ensure this, they also make sure that sometimes they ask all their dependents, whether their wife or children, also to commit to that regional. So if they're studying or if they're working, they also expect you to do their studies and work in that regional area where you're settled. So the restrictions or the condition of subclass 494 is that you must live and work for 3 years on subclass 494 in the regional areas to get to subclass 191. And you can move between jobs, then you have 90 days to find a new employer. But they are now talking about extending this to 6 months, time allowing the applicants to find an employment. And you cannot apply for any other skilled PR or 820. So skilled PR is subclass 190, 491, subclass 189, 482. So you can't go for any of these other categories. You have to commit to this subclass 494 and stay the 3 years in order to get your permanent residency. And again, you are eligible for Medicare benefits in subclass 494 visa. So as I said, this is a great visa dedicated for regional areas to develop or address labor shortages in regional areas. You need an employer. As an employee, you need an employer to provide you with a job with 70,000 plus super package that is available for at least 5 years in a regional location. Then from the employee side, you need to make sure that you're under 45, competent English with a skill assessment, and skilled 3 years full-time work experience in one of the occupations that are available in MLTSS, STSOL or ROL, and you are good to go for subclass 494. We always tend to lodge and advise our clients to lodge decision-ready applications, which means all the documents that the case officer need to make a decision is already attached to the application once we lodge, and we do the medicals and police clearances as well, so the decision can be faster. Case officer doesn't have to come back with further information request, keep asking for documents. They've got everything they need to make a decision on your case faster. So as I said, again, this is a great visa to promote regional areas and to address labor shortages in regional areas. If you're, I hope the process makes it a bit clear for you. As I said, it has a nomination, and then once the nomination is lodged, the RCB is approved, then you can go in to lodge the visa application, or you can do all these applications together as well. I hope this makes it a bit clear for you. Thank you so much for listening into the information. I think I'll probably answer a few questions before I finish the session today. And next week we are going to be talking about labor agreements. All these visas are available under labor agreements as well, so I'm going to be talking about labor agreements next week, and we are also going to be covering about DAMA, and if there are any new migration updates comes, then I will also talk about these updates during the live session, as our purpose is to keep our potential clients and anyone who's interested in coming to Australia informed. Right, I've got Chani asking, what is the requirement to apply for this visa 494? I hope if you watch the video from the beginning, you'll be able to understand. As I said, it is the employer nominated visa. Then you need to be eligible for the visa. Darshana is asking, how about 188A visa processing time? 188A, we have also lodged many applications, and they're all in waiting. We are hoping that they will pick up granting these visas or making decisions for these visas after this 1st of July once they get new quota. I think they've got about 1900 places for 188. We are also eagerly waiting to find out more information about 188. Santosh is asking, hi, is there any age restriction for 494? Yes, Santosh, there are some exemptions available for some applicants, but in general the age requirement is main applicant has to be under 45 years of age at the time of lodging. Yeah. I've got Chetan asking, do you provide sponsorship also for 494? No, as a migration agent, we don't really find you sponsorships, but we are working with recruiters. If you send us the CV and if you're interested, I'm happy to forward your details to a recruiter that can help you find jobs. I've got Santosh asking, what about processing time? I think I did also explain about the processing time. It had quite a long processing time, 6 to 9 months, but now we are seeing faster and faster grant times. Sorry ma'am, I missed the earlier part. New South Wales is excluded in this 494? No, that is not right. New South Wales included in the 494, but not Sydney. So Sydney, as I said, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, the main cities, you're not eligible to apply for 494, but anything that is considered regional, you can apply 494. If you need more information, get in touch with me. I'm happy to provide you a free consultation. Dear Miss Yapa, I wanted to inquire if Sri Lanka is now classified as level 1 country for Australian migration assessment. See these levels, they're mainly for student visas, and Sri Lanka I believe is currently level 1 for student visas. That is correct. Lakpriya is also asking, could you please clarify how this impacts the main factors for a student visa as proof of funds, show money and English language requirements? So Lakpriya, how this works is, in theory, especially if you're lodging the application onshore, if the country is level 1 and if the college is level 1, then you don't need to actually have proof of funds or English. But if you're offshore and if we are lodging this visa from Sri Lanka, we always include English and proof of funds, because sometimes English and proof of funds and English really helps to identify the applicant as a genuine applicant. So if you're saying that, okay, I want to go to Australia to study, so you should be able to do an English test and prove that you have the enough English to do that. And if you say that I'm an international student, I'm going to support myself, then you should be able to show that you have the funds. So based on that, if we are lodging the student visa from Sri Lanka, for example, we always attach funds and English, even Sri Lanka is level 1, because these levels can change anytime as well. And you think that Sri Lanka is level 1 and you lodge a student visa, and the next day Sri Lanka goes to level 2 or level 3, that can be a problem. And Jay is saying they can't hear me. I'm really sorry. I think we fixed that. I do apologize if you couldn't hear us. And someone's asking, I'm 27 years old, can I apply for aged care? I have a 3-year diploma in nursing. Yes, you're most likely, yes, you can apply for that. I am going to be doing a dedicated session about this aged care labor agreement stream and how people can be eligible and how they can approach employers. I'll be able to I'll go through in detail, and if you're interested, you can watch that as well. It'll be on a Friday, same time. And I've got Chini asking, how about for Malaysian? So I think Malaysia is also level 1. So again, the funds requirement and English requirement is quite low, and from my understanding, it is quite easy compared to some other countries to get student visas for Malaysian people. All right. So Santosh is saying soon they'll contact us. Yes, you can contact us, admin@cirrus.com.au, or you can give us a call. I've got son is in Sri Lanka to whom I have to contact. Okay, in Sri Lanka, if you go to our website cirrus.com.au, we have few offices in Sri Lanka. One of our country managers in Sri Lanka is Resha. You can get in touch with her. She is in Colombo office. So get in touch with her, and if you still have questions for me, you can contact me through Resha as well. I've got Tanji. This is probably going to be my last question. Asking, ma'am, I've lodged 491 visa, SA state sponsorship. Can I live in any other state regional visa? If you have lodged the 491 and the requirement at that time was not for you to be living in regional, then you can be living in other state. But I highly recommend you to go and start living in New South Wales, South Australia regional, because once they open the file, South Australia is a state that they are really looking into people's commitment. They can question about your commitment. So if you already started living and already found a job, I think that will be really good for your 491, because once your 491 is granted, you have to go and live in South Australia regional area, and you cannot move between states once you have your 491. We highly recommend you to stay in that state, but you can live in different regional areas in the state. I hope that makes sense. Right, thank you so much. I think this is a great session. A lot of people have asked questions and I've tried to answer them to the best I can. So I will see you again next week. Please tune in and ask all your questions. So this is free advice that I'm trying to give you and educate you about Australian immigration matters. We will type our contact number in Sri Lanka as well. So thank you so much for listening in, and I will see you again next Friday.